Hello everyone. In this class, we'll try to learn about the tubular functions of the kidney. So that is functions of proximal convoluted tubule, loop of Henle, and distal convoluted tubule, and the collecting duct. The learning objectives of this class will be to understand the common principles of tubular functions in urine formation, list the transport mechanism that operate along the kidney tubules, outline the transport mechanism, various solutes and water in different parts of the renal tubule. So elucidate the proximal tubular functions, functions of loop of Henle, uh, distal convoluted tubule and the collecting duct. Describe the mechanism of reabsorption of sodium and glucose from kidney tubules. Define tubular load, transport maximum, renal threshold, and renal splay and their significance. Understand the mechanism of water reabsorption in different parts of the nephron. List the functions of P cell and I cells in collecting duct and describe the effect of aldosterone on these. Correlate the tubular functions with some of the dysfunctions of the kidney. So this is the structure of the nephron. The important function of the nephron is one is the glomerular filtration. The second one which occurs in the glomeruli. The second one is reabsorption of the most of the filtered substances and secretion of some of the substances which can be excreted in the urine. Okay, so that is how urine will be formed. The important functions of the tubules are excretion, which refers to the removal of solutes and water from the body in the urine. Reabsorption refers to movement of tubular fluid to the peritubular blood, and secretion, that is movement of peritubular blood to the tubular fluid, which refers to the direction of the movement of solutes and water across the renal tubular epithelium. Okay, so here I have shown three important steps of urine formation. One is glomerular filtration, reabsorption, and secretion. So there can be variation in the tubular lining of the epithelium depending on the activity of the different epithelial cells, where you can see in the proximal convoluted tubule you see the large amount of brush border, and you can see large amount of the mitochondria in the epithelial cells. Because this structure is highly active, it contains many carrier proteins, and enzymatic activity or the ATP activity is maximum in the proximal convoluted tubule compared to the loop of Henle, distal convoluted tubule and the collecting ducts. What is tubular reabsorption? The glucose and amino acids are almost completely reabsorbed from the tubules, so that the urinary excretion is essentially zero. Okay. Whereas many of the ions in the plasma, such as sodium, chloride, bicarbonate, they are also highly reabsorbed, but their rate of reabsorption and urinary excretion are variable depending on the needs of the body. So certain waste products such as urea and creatinine are poorly reabsorbed from the tubules and excreted in relatively larger amounts. Okay. So here some the percentage of reabsorption for the different substances been given. So glucose and bicarbonate, they are 100% reabsorbed in the renal tubule, whereas sodium chloride, water, potassium, almost 99 percent of these solutes or ions, they will be reabsorbed. Okay, and urea, the 51.7% is reabsorbed, rest is excreted in the urine. For a substance to be reabsorbed, it must be first transported. For that, the substance has to cross the tubular epithelial membrane into the renal interstitial fluid, then through the peritubular capillary membrane back into the blood. Water and solutes can be transported either through cell membranes themselves, which is called as a transcellular route, or through the junctional spaces between the cells, which is called as paracellular route. So this diagram shows different ways of transport of substances. Okay, so some of the substances they can cross and enter into the blood through the paracellular path. So some they will transcellularly by using the different transport mechanism. So then they are transported to the opposite side of the lumen. Okay, so then some of the solutes they can be reabsorbed by the active transport or the passive diffusion. Okay, so water can flow with the bulk flow or through the osmosis. Okay, so these are the different modes of reabsorption of the different substances. Okay, so coming to a proximal convoluted tubule. Okay, so where it is going to receive almost 20% of uh, the plasma. Okay, so which is called as filtrate fraction. Okay, uh, okay, so this proximal tubule, I mean, it is a very highly uh, active structure where it is going to help in the reabsorption of the most of the substances which are filtered. Okay, so the most of the substances like sodium chloride, bicarbonate, potassium, and water, almost 65% of these are reabsorbed back into the proximal convoluted tubule, whereas glucose and amino acids they are reabsorbed uh, back into the uh, capillaries 100%. Okay, so I mean the proximal convoluted tubule can also secrete some of the substances like H plus ion, organic acid, and bases. Okay, so it receives almost 65% of the filtered load. Sorry, it is going to reabsorb almost 65% of the filtered load. It's highly metabolic. It's very because of the more number of mitochondria. It has an extensive brush border, and it has a more number of carbonic hydrase anhydrase, which is going to help in the reabsorption of the bicarbonate. Okay, and it has large number of channels and carrier proteins. Okay, so which will help in the reabsorption of the glucose, amino acids, and other substances. So this diagram showing how the different substances are reabsorbed. Uh, the sodium is always reabsorbed with a co-transport with the glucose and amino acids. Okay, so the sodium and glucose they are transported by the secondary active transport, where the sodium concentration gradient is created because of the primary sodium potassium pump. Okay, so that is why sodium moves inside with that glucose and other amino acids moves. Okay, so that is one of the major method by which sodium moves inside the cell. Okay, and other important uh, method is the active transport of sodium with the exchange of H plus ion. Okay, so with that it is going to secrete one H plus ion and it is going to reabsorb sodium. Okay, and also the sodium can also be reabsorbed by the paracellular pathway. Okay, so which is going to happen in the later part of the proximal convoluted tubule. Okay, so with that the chloride and some amount of potassium and water is going to be reabsorbed by the paracellular pathway in the later part of the proximal convoluted tubule. Okay, so the most important thing is the reabsorption of the most of the substances is driven by the sodium potassium pump, so which is present in the basolateral membrane. Okay, so which is going to help in the absorption of the different substances including sodium, uh, glucose and amino acids and the bicarbonate. Okay, so this is another structure or diagram showing the reabsorption of the glucose amino acids with the sodium as a co-transport, so which is called as secondary active transport. Okay, so here the receptor for the channel for glucose is they are called as sodium glucose uh, SGLT, sodium glucose transport. Two channels are utilized, whereas the movement of the glucose at the basolateral membrane, GLUT2 transports are important. Okay. So sodium not only reabsorbed by the secondary active transport, but also they are reabsorbed by the primary active transport, where one sodium enters inside the epithelial cells with the secretion of one H plus ion. Okay, so the secretion of H plus ion, this is also going to help in the reabsorption of the bicarbonate from the proximal converted tubule. Okay. So here you can see the active secretion of H plus ion is going to combine with the bicarbonate which are filtered. Okay, so that forms bicarbonic acid that immediately divides into water and carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide gets reabsorbed, and in the cell it combines with water in presence of carbonic anhydrase enzyme. It forms the carbonic acid, which immediately splits into H plus ion and bicarbonate. Okay, and this bicarbonate will be reabsorbed into the bloodstream. Okay, so this is how most of the bicarbonate which is filtered uh, in the tubule will be reabsorbed by the secretion of H plus ion. Okay, and that is how bicarbonate, almost 65% of the bicarbonate gets reabsorbed in the proximal convoluted tubule. Okay, so this showing what is the difference between early proximal tubule and late proximal tubule, how sodium absorption differs. Okay, so in the early proximal tubule, the sodium is absorbed with the exchange of hydrogen ion. Okay, and there can be a secondary active transport where the sodium enters with other organic solids like the glucose and amino acids and phosphates, whereas this cannot happen in the late proximal tubule. Okay, so here only the active transport of H plus ion with absorption of sodium occurs. Otherwise, the sodium is reabsorbed by the paracellular pathway. Okay, so sodium moves along with chloride and water. Some of the parts of the tubule in PCT, there can be a reabsorption of the larger molecules such as proteins by pinacocytosis. So to summarize, these are the functions of the proximal tubular function. The proximal tubule is the most important part of the nephron as it reabsorbs about 67% of the filtered water, sodium, chloride, potassium, and bicarbonate ions. And almost all the filtered glucose and amino acids. Glucose and amino acids, they are reabsorbed 100%. The proximal tubule has a convoluted and straight portions. Though the convoluted parts comprise 70% of the tubule, functionally both the parts are similar with a few minor differences. The primary focus of reabsorption process in the PCT is directed at the sodium reabsorption, okay, so which is usually secondary to electrochemical gradient created by sodium potassium pump located on the basolateral membrane of the epithelial cells. Okay, so the entire process, it depends on the sodium potassium pump for the reabsorption of the different substances. Reabsorption of water and most solutes directly or indirectly linked to sodium potassium pump. Therefore, abnormalities of this pump may result in mini renal dysfunction. What is tubular load? Okay, so tubular load of any substance, it's going to depend on the glomerular filtration rate, okay, and its concentration in the plasma. The tubular load of a substance is the total amount of that substance present in the filtrate produced by all the nephrons of both the kidneys per minute. Okay, so that's how the tubular load can be given as GFR into plasma concentration of that particular substance. If blood glucose's concentration is around 100 milligrams per deciliter and GFR is 125 ml per minute, then the tubular load will be 125 milligrams per minute. What is transport maximum? For substances that are actively transported, there is a limit to the rate at which the solute can be transported. That is called as transport maximum. Okay. So this limit is due to the saturation of specific transport system involved when the amount of solute delivered to the tubule, that is tubular load, exceeds the capacity of the carrier proteins. Okay. So the amount of solute, if exceeds the number of the carrier protein, okay, so then that substance is going to be excreted in the delivered to the urine. Okay. So for example, if the transport maximum for glucose uh, averages about 375 milligrams per minute, okay, so normally filtered load of glucose is only about 125 milligrams per minute. So that is GFR into the plasma glucose is equal to 125 ml per minute into 1 milligrams per ml. Okay. So with increase in the GFR and the plasma glucose concentration, uh, that increase the filtered load of glucose above 375 milligrams per minute. The excess of glucose filtered is not reabsorbed and passes into the urine. Okay. So what is tubular maximum for glucose? The maximum absorptive capacity for glucose by renal tubular cells is around 375 milligrams per minute in males, and for females it is 300 milligrams per minute. Okay. And what is renal threshold? It is the plasma glucose level at which glucose first appears in the urine. So that means when the plasma glucose levels increases more than 200 milligrams in the arterial blood, so then it reaches the tubular maximum and the glucose starts appearing in the urine. So similarly, with the 180 mg milligrams per deciliter in the venous blood, the glucose starts appearing in the urine because it exceeds the tubular maximum for glucose. Okay, so this is the diagram showing what happens when plasma glucose level increases gradually and how much is glucose is absorbed. Okay, so initially it will be in a linear fashion. Okay, and when the plasma glucose reaches the uh, transport maximum, the no glucose is reabsorbed. Okay, and the glucose starts appear excess glucose starts appearing in the urine. Okay, so actually the urine glucose starts appearing quite early before it reaches the tubular maximum for glucose. So that is because all the tubules, kidney tubules, they cannot be active at the same time. Okay, and there can be some functional variation between the tubules. Okay, so that is why before the concentration reaches the tubular maximum for glucose, the glucose starts appearing in the urine. Okay, so this ideal and actual difference, that is theoretical and the practical difference, is called as splay. Okay, so this diagram showing the amount of the solutes throughout the proximal tubule length. Okay, so you can see by the time you reach the end of the proximal converter tubule, most of the glucose and amino acids, their concentration decreases. They're 100% reabsorbed. Okay, so almost 60% of the bicarbonate they gets reabsorbed in the proximal converter tubule. Okay, so the sodium and osmolality, they remain quite normal, whereas urea and creatinine, some of the urea and creatinine, they are going to be secreted from the proximal converter tubule, so their concentration, they're going to increase. Okay, so this is the summary, the functions of PCT. It helps in the resorption of the organic nutrients. It causes active reabsorption of the ions, sodium chloride, and even carbon dioxide. Reabsorption of the water, almost 60 to 70% of the water is going to be reabsorbed in the PCT. It also leads to passive reabsorption of the urea. it secretes the H plus ion, urea and creatinine. Okay, so 60 to 70% of the sodium chloride ion reabsorption occurs here along with the movement of the water. Okay, so coming to the loop of Henle, coming to loop of Henle is a U-shaped structure, and it is going to reabsorb most of the filtrate which are going to enter into the loop of Henle. Almost 25% of most of the substances are reabsorbed from the loop of Henle. Okay, so if you see the loop of Henle, it has a descending part and ascending thin segment and ascending thick segment. Okay, so descending thin segment, it is permeable to water. Okay, so when isotonic fluid in the tubular filtrate enters into the thin descending loop, okay, so as and when it descends down, it loses water, because so this part is very permeable to water. Okay, so the tubular fluid is going to be concentrated as it reaches the tip of the loop of the Henle. By the time it reaches the tip, the concentration is increased to 1200 milliosmoles per liter. Okay, so then this concentrated fluid, okay, so it is going to ascend into the thin ascending loop and the thick ascending loop. Okay, so where most of the solutes, they are going to be reabsorbed from the thick ascending loop. Okay, so most of the sodium chloride, potassium, calcium, bicarbonate and magnesium, they are going to be reabsorbed from the thick ascending loop of the Henle. Okay, and this absorption of these solutes or ions is going to help in the concentration of the urine, in helping countercurrent multiplier system. Okay, so this thick ascending loop also, it is going to secrete H plus ions in the tubular fluid. So this descending part of the thin segment is highly permeable to water and moderately permeable to the most of the solids, including urea and sodium. So here about 20% of the filtered water is reabsorbed in the loop of Henle, and almost all of this occurs in the thin descending loop, as I had discussed. The thin descending limb does not reabsorb significant amounts of solutes. Okay, so in thin ascending loop, you have a specialized channels which are called as sodium 2 chloride potassium channels, so which are going to help in the reabsorption of the sodium into the blood. Okay, so these are the protein channels which are going to help in the concentration of the urine by taking part in the counter current multiplier system. Okay, so blockage of these channels are like loop diuretics such as a furosemide. They are going to decrease the reabsorption of the sodium chloride or potassium, and with that water is also not reabsorbed, so there can be excessive loss of sodium and water. Okay, so that is how the loop diuretics increases the amount of urine formation, and they causes diuresis. So the loop of Henle is found in 1/3 of all the nephrons in the kidney, majority in the medullary kidneys, begins in the cortex of the kidney and dips into the medulla of the kidney. As we discussed, it has got two parts: descending loop of Henle and ascending loop of Henle. Okay, so overall function of the loop of Henle is to create very high concentration sodium and chloride ions in the tissue fluid of the medulla. Okay, so and enabling water to be reabsorbed from the fluid in collecting duct as it flows through the medulla. And it also enables the concentrated urine production and ensures water is conserved in the body and not released into the urine. Okay, so it is going to prevent the dehydration also. Coming to distal converted tubule, the important function of the distal converted tubule is reabsorption of the sodium and water. Okay, so wherein the early part of the distal converted tubule is very active, as you see there are more number of mitochondria, and the late connecting distal converted tubule has comparatively less active. Okay, so early and late DCT, uh, it acts as a diluting segment, so as it is permeable for sodium. Okay, and distal converted tubule, uh, another important thing is it has a juxtaglomerular apparatus. Okay, so when it comes in contacts with the afferent vessels of the glomeruli, okay, so there the some of the cells of distal converted tubule, they get they have a specialized cells which are called as macula densa. Okay, so these are going to detect the sodium and chloride levels. Okay, so in case there is a decreased sodium and chloride levels in the tubular fluid, it is going to stimulate the juxtaglomerular cells to secrete renin. Okay, so this renin is going to convert angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2, and angiotensin 2 is a potent vasoconstrictor. Okay, so it is going to stimulate the hypothalamus for the intake of the water. So it is going to increase aldosterone secretion from the adrenal cortex, and at the same time it can act on the renal tubular cell to increase more amount of sodium and water from the distal converted tubule. Okay, so thus any kind of hypotension or hypoosmolality is going to activate renin angiotensin system, and it is going to expand the extracellular fluid volume. Okay, and it also helps in the regulation of the blood pressure by increasing the blood pressure. Okay, and at the same time the DCT also has the active transport of sodium and chloride. Okay, so sodium is also actively transported with the chloride. Okay, and the thiazide diuretics, they act as a diuretic by blocking this channel. Okay, so if you're blocking the sodium chloride channel here, the sodium chloride is not absorbed, so with that water is also not absorbed, so excess amount of sodium and water is lost in the urine. The role of early part of the DCT is absorption of ions including sodium, chloride and calcium. Okay, so remember that this part is impermeable to water. So to summarize, the distal converted tubule function, it is not very uh, metabolically active tissue. It reabsorbs less than the 15% of the filtrate. So it has a poor permeability compared to uh, the the thin descending loop, okay, or the PCT. It reabsorbs against high electrochemical gradient. Okay, uh, and it is important part of the final composition for the urine. Okay. Small part of the distal tubule is near the afferent arteriole is called as macula densa, so which is going to help in the glomerulotubular feedback mechanism. Okay, so another different types of cells which are found in the late distal tubules and collecting duct are the principal cells and the intercallected cells. So principal cell is going to reabsorb sodium and it is going to excrete potassium. Okay, whereas the intercalated cells, I mean, they are going to secrete H plus ion by antipoting the potassium. Okay, so the principal cells, it helps in the excretion of the potassium, whereas intercalated cells, it helps in the absorption of the potassium. So, and both of the cells, I mean, both of the activity, I mean, occurs under the influence of aldosterone. Okay, so here also, I mean, in the distal converted tubule, with the active secretion of H plus ion will be able to help in the reabsorption of the bicarbonate. Okay, and thus this part is very important for the acid base balance. Okay, so whenever H plus ion increases in the bloodstream, okay, so the H plus ions, they are actively secreted. So with secretion of one H plus ion, so the one bicarbonate molecule is going to be uh, reabsorbed back, okay, and thus it helps in the balance of the H plus ion in the bloodstream. The later part, which is called as collecting duct, the important function is it is going to increase the absorption of the sodium chloride. It is going to increase the absorption of the water, which is usually influenced by the ADH. So there will be absorption of the urea. There will be absorption of uh, the bicarbonate with the secretion of H plus ions. Okay. So the main role of collecting duct is the reabsorption of water through the action of antidiuretic hormone and the aquaporin. Okay, so the aquaporin channels here, they are type 2 channels. The ADH is produced in the hypothalamus and stored in the posterior pituitary gland until it is released. Okay. Uh, the anterior hypothalamus has osmoreceptors. They are going to detect the plasma osmolality. So if the plasma osmolality is very high, so the osmoreceptors in the anterior hypothalamus stimulated, they stimulate the posterior hypothalamus to release excess amount of ADH. So ADH is going to act on the renal tubular cell. They're going to increase the water and the sodium, especially the water, and thus they are going to dilute the plasma. Okay, the permeability of the late distal tubule and cortical collecting duct is under the control of the antidiuretic hormone. The kidney handling of the water. Okay, so about 85% of the filtered water is always reabsorbed irrespective of the water body water balance, and this reabsorption occurs by osmosis in response to a transtubular osmotic gradient, and this is called as obligatory reabsorption or must occur. Okay, so the aldosterone is going to uh, influence a bit in the obligatory reabsorption of the water. Okay. The remaining 15 to 18% of the water may or may not be absorbed depending upon the body water balance. It is called as facultative or optional reabsorption. The facultative reabsorption of the water occurs from collecting tubule and it is under the control of antidiuretic hormone. Okay. So here are the some of the tubular the diseases which are associated with tubular dysfunction. Liddle syndrome. So this is the autosomal dominant disorder characterized by increased ECF volume, hypertension, hypokalemia, and alkalosis. Okay, so here aldosterone and renin levels are normal, less. So in this case, there is a uh, amiloride sensitive sodium channels become hyperactive, which results in reabsorption of large amounts of sodium and increased potassium excretion. So this is accompanied by reabsorption of the large quantities of water. So thus ECF expansion occurs and it causes hypertension. Pseudohypoaldosteronism, again there are two types. So type 1 is a rare autosomal disease which is just opposite to that of Liddle syndrome. Okay, so this occurs because of the mutation of the mineralocorticoid receptor gene, and uh, so this occurs because of the mutation of amyloid sensitive epithelial sodium channels. And type 2 is also called as Gordon syndrome or autosomal dominant disease, uh, which characterized by hyperkalemia, hypertension, and metabolic acidosis. and occurs secondary to overactivity of thiazide sensitive sodium chloride transporter, which is there in the DCT. Gentleman syndrome is another autosomal recessive disorder characterized by hypokalemia, alkalosis, salt wasting, elevated renin and aldosterone levels with a normal blood pressure. The disease occurs due to the mutation of thiazide sensitive sodium chloride transporter. Here, the decreased sodium absorption in DCT occurs that leads to volume depletion and hypokalemia. So, loss of activity of the thiazide sensitive transport increases the calcium reabsorption, causing also a hypocalciuria. Okay, so this is regarding in brief about the different parts of the uh, tubules and their functions. Thank you.